Enough bad advice. How many times do you ever see me do that, folks, with the old lame hashtag? See, I have to look at it. It's kind of like you ever do the what is it, the Star Trek, the Vulcan wave, and you have to look at your fingers to make sure you get it right. That's the same thing with the hashtag. Is it just me? Am I a loser? I don't know. Anyway, for those of you first time here, welcome to the show. My name is Daryl Prell. I'm with Vanilla Soft. And a while ago, we started this whole thing online. It's called Enough Bad Advice, where I get an expert in the industry and I get them for 3, 4, 5 minutes and I say, dude, dudette, give me one piece of advice that's bad. And just tell me why it's bad and instead what we should be doing. And it just kind of blew up. It truly just blew up. I have more people talking to me about enough bad advice and people coming to me saying, hey, can I be on your Enough Bad Advice series? So you know you've hit a chord when they're asking to be on the series. So that's kind of cool. And so the story here is every time I do this, there's this one cat. Well, it's probably more than one, but there's one specifically who always comes up to me afterwards. And this individual does a couple things. They either critique the session, whether they agreed or disagreed, or they chastise me and they tell me how I did it wrong, or they coach me and they say, well, you kind of had it right, but you needed to go a little further, and this is what you should have done. All of which I love. I know you're thinking, I'm trying to help out the community and I'm getting grief. No, I'm not getting grief. I'm getting smart. That's what I'm doing. So with enough of this going on, I thought, what am I doing? We're having some good fun, good success with the Enough Bad Advice series. Let's bring it all in and do like a big 1 hour long session where we can crank out more than just one at a time. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to invite that cool cat to join me. Therefore, I assume I shall not get any post-production criticisms because this individual will think that I nailed it, right? I mean, it seems reasonable. So that's my logic. That's what's going on today. So this is all about Enough Bad Advice, where we go and pick apart all the things that you have been told are factual, are true, that you should do what you need to do. In this situation, do this, but don't do that. And we're going to tell you that, you know what, that advice that you've been listening to, you've been internalizing, you've been applying was in fact bad. It was bad. It was a wives' tale. It was a myth. It was a cliche that has gotten a life of its own. And let us explain to you why that's wrong and instead what you should be doing in those situations. So that's that. Now, let's talk ground rules. If this is your first time here, well, we want to hear from you. So there's a couple ways you can do that. This is live. Here we are. I'm talking. But to the right of the video, you will see a chat window. And what you can do in there is you can either do what a lot of people do, is you can just lurk, say nothing, be a stalker, don't tell us who you are, and just look at all the comments and sit in judgment privately so nobody sees or hears you. That is one school of thought. Or another is to pop your name in there as a guest. You don't even need to sign up and add to the conversation. I'm hoping you're the latter. So right now, let's start out with the classic. I want to see a big shout out from whatever city you're from. I want you to represent. And then I want you at the same time is I want you to physically shout out different bad advices that you see. All right. And then what we'll try to do is try to answer them all in real time. And while we're talking, when we're not talking, we'll be on chat. So that's kind of how that's going to work. So that's the ground rule. So who's this cat I'm talking about? Glad you asked. Let's pull up that next slide where we talk about the presenters. See, there it is. It's not me. By the way, you notice that's me without the beard. What do you think? You like the beard? Yes or no? I need the feedback. No, the cool cat I'm talking about is Jeff Molander. All right. Apparently that's Swedish. I don't know if that's Swedish for common sense or just I have an opinion. You'll have to ask Jeff when he gets there. He's with Communications Edge. Check him out right now. Go on LinkedIn. He is amazing. He's got his own company. He does all this stuff that's sales related, training, coaching, you name it. He'll tell you all about it. But in the meantime, you need to follow him on LinkedIn because he's the kind of guy, unlike a lot of the posts you see on LinkedIn where it's just like, yeah, more of the same. This individual causes you to go, 9 times out of 10, you're going to look at that, whatever he posts, and you're going to say, Molander, you're full of crap, and I disagree with you. This is what I do on a regular basis. Let's get rid of that. I don't want to see him anymore, Daniel. Thank you very much. You're going to see you're full of crap. But then you're going to go, well, maybe not full of crap. And then 5 or 10 minutes later, you're going to begrudgingly say, okay, I get it. Okay, yeah, maybe he's got a point. So that's the most you're going to get from me, Jeff, in the way of a compliment. It stops there. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Here to help you nail it, man.
Oh,
So
look at
absolutely.
you. He didn't even you didn't even have to think about that. You just nailed the Vulcan hand. I don't. It's not.
Yeah.
What is that? Is that? It's like a handshake or what? Don't they? Oh, there we go. That's right. There we go. I know. He's showing
Don't
off.
forget the death grip. Is it
The
no?
death. Yes.
Yeah.
Is it?
No, it's not
There's
death.
also.
You put you to sleep.
Yeah, no, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but where they basically incapacitate them. Today, what I want to do is I want to do a Vulcan mind meld with you. How's that? Huh? Look
Nice
at that.
transition,
I
man.
know.
Perfect.
I know. Everybody's going Vulcan. I don't get it. What are you talking about? If for you young kids, just think Chris Pine in the modern day series. All right, where we're going back probably a series or two earlier. Are you a next gen guy? Are you a Trekkie or a Trekker? Or are you none of the above?
All of them.
Oh, look at you politically correct. When have you ever been politically correct? And now today you're going to be politically correct.
No, I'll tell you. I'm serious. Battlestar Galactica, the TV series.
Oh,
Very
see,
serious.
okay.
And Star Wars. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a Gil Gerard and Aaron Gray from Battlestar Galactica, showing my 70s roots. So there we go. All right. So
that goes way back.
Way back. I know. In fact,
to the all male Starbuck and what's his name? The other character cast. Yeah. Anyway, not to derail.
But if you're a fan of the original A-Team series, Dirk Benedict, was that his name? Was on the original Battlestar Galactica, if I recall correctly. So don't quote me on that one. So you're all, look at that one. That's my shout out for you. Jeff, tell us a little bit about Communications Edge and what you do.
We help sellers figure out innovative ways to start conversations with people who don't want to have conversations, who are very good, at avoiding salespeople and avoiding cold calls and cold emails and that kind of thing. We help them break the ice and get through. That's the simple version.
All right, so that sounds pretty straightforward. You might be qualified to help us today with enough bad advice. So what are we going to cover today? Let's pull that up. First off, we're going to talk about, just what exactly is bad advice. We somewhat hit that already, but we'll go a little deeper. And there's going to be 5 we're hitting on today. Is it 5 we're hitting on? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Compelling subject lines, measuring open rates, calls to action, personalization, and educating prospects. But seriously, let's get to the enough bad advice point. I just want to put that but seriously, enough bad advice. Can I just say that emphatically enough? Enough bad advice. But that leads me to my next slide, which of course is what advice is bad advice. So let me throw it over to you, Jeff. In your opinion, what advice is bad advice? And why do we get it?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if the premise is exactly fitting with how I would answer your question, but I don't think it's that the advice is bad. I think it's outdated. So I think, conventional wisdom oftentimes leads to us spinning our wheels. So, but to try to answer your question, and I think I can answer it quite well, actually. I think bad advice is, generally speaking, conventional wisdom best practices. In sales outreach, it's just so old. And oftentimes I think the people who are giving this bad advice are just telling us what we would prefer to hear rather than what we would really need to know. So because what we prefer to hear is very comfortable for us, versus what we really need to know might actually involve a little bit of work. So I think that's one aspect. I think bad advice is anything that sounds easy to do. And I think there's a lot of that. If you look on LinkedIn, you Google, you hit Google, you look for some advice. You're like, oh, that sounds easy to do. I'll try that. I think it's easy to do and it gives us an immediate sense of accomplishment at the end of the day. Oh, I did this. I sent out these 20 email templates, whatever it is. I made X number of calls. But it really comes at the expense of actually generating the outcome that we desire. We got stuff done today. We can tell the boss we sent out X number of emails, but we didn't actually get any conversation started. So I think bad advice is also advice that is poorly reasoned or not reasoned at all. It's just offered up, kind of like a best practice, right? They're just offered and they're like, oh yeah, well, this is a best practice. Oh, I've heard other people. Yeah. As an example, trust. Send out a lot of emails and your emails need to build trust. I don't want to get too far ahead of us, but it sounds good, right? But how would you expect a series of emails from a stranger to build trust? It's just completely unrealistic. If you start to rationalize it just for like 30 seconds, And I oftentimes, frankly, find that bad advice is offered by experts who have no interest in our success. They're just cranking out stale best practices because they've got a lot of blog posts or some, they've got to post to LinkedIn every day. Now, I'm not saying everybody's advice is bad advice, but I'm saying that 95% of what we see on LinkedIn, on blog posts, is pretty outdated advice because people, and if I rub you wrong, Daryl, I know you're gonna bust me out because we're all marketers. I'm a marketer too, right? So, and I know you're not just about marketing now. You're the chief revenue officer, but we've all got to create content and lots of content, and we run out of good ideas, original ideas. It's not easy, but I think that's really my summary on what bad advice is.
All right. So I love that point about outdated advice, especially. That's a valid point. It's not all bad, but maybe it's just not relevant. So either way, whether it's wrong or irrelevant or no longer applicable, and you're using it or someone's given that to you, or maybe worse off, you're telling somebody else this, you were told it, now you're telling them, well, it's time to put an end to the enough bad advice series. So let's do that. All right, let's start off with our first one. Compelling subject lines. Compelling subject lines. Now, what about compelling subject lines, Jeff, are you going to say represents some bad advice? Let's just start with that.
Yeah. Before I answer that question, I do want to mention that good advice should be reasonable, logical, and I think it comes in, it's less widely known. So when you come across some new advice, you might go, oh, I've never quite heard that before. That might be worth trying. I think that's generally going to be better advice for you to take. And I also think it should make you a little bit uncomfortable. So just want to get that in. Okay, so subject lines. So compelling subject lines. Yeah, so the word compelling, I think, is the problem. And I guess I should start by saying that I think where this comes from, the word compelling, in the sales context is problematic because it's a marketing idea. I mean, marketers we're always trying to kind of, compel people to do things. And we're going to get to the call to action as well. That's on our list too, I believe. So, the subject line should provoke your curiosity to open the email message. That's its only job. So should it compel you to open? Yes. But I think there's a lot of, people who are writing those subject lines as if they are a title of a new email newsletter. If you're in sales, if you're a SDR in particular, and you write a subject line that's 4, 5, 6, 7 words long, it's starting to sound a lot like an article or a newsletter, or there's a lot of information in there that's designed to compel you to open it. And the more that we do that, our community has found that, and statistically, I mean, I think some of your competitors actually may have published, you guys may know this as well at Vanilla
Yeah,
Soft.
no, they've done the studies on, less than 5 words, 1 to 3, 1 to 2, ideally.
That's right, exactly. That's what we're seeing as well. That's right. That's what our community sees as well. In the sales context, less is more. In the subject line, inside the email body of the message itself, we're finding that less is more, even in some very surprising ways. So when you say compelling subject line, it's a very, our subject lines need to be compelling or catchy or have a hook. I hear that a lot. These are all dangerous ideas that are perhaps good ideas in a marketing context, but not so good in a sales context. That's the only. So I don't think that word belongs there. I think subject lines need to be short and should spark your curiosity. Vague. All right. Almost vague would be a better.
Almost vague. So when it comes on the series of enough bad advice, we're told all the time, make your subject lines compelling. If they're compelling, they'll be open and you will stand out from the crowd. And in fact, what we're hearing is that is bad advice. As Jeff Molander says, you got to have almost vague subject lines. The fewer words, the better. Stats say less than 5 words, but even less than 3 are more compelling. So if you truly want to make a subject line compelling, make it open to interpretation. Make it vague. Make them go, why am I opening this? And that will get the email opened up way more than just you writing War and Peace in that subject line in a desperate attempt to say something, put something up against the wall, hope it sticks, and actually compels them, excuse the use of the redundancy of the term compel, to open that email. I am compelled to not use compel anymore. Less is more when it comes to your subject lines. All right.
You got it.
That is myth number 1. Let's go to myth number 2. I love this one. Myth number 2. On the spirit of enough bad advice, you need to be measuring your open rates, because then you will know if you're having success. Now, I'm just paraphrasing. Jeff, what's the word on measuring open rates? Is that good advice or bad advice?
Yeah. In a sales context, I know there are a lot of people who will disagree with me. It's a matter of how much importance the open rate is. I see people measuring open rate again because here's let's just cut to the chase. Open tracking technology, they reported that, and I quote, "It is somewhat expected, understanding how pixel-based tracking works, but the difference is extreme with ESPs reported data up to 3 times greater than our own engagement data." So what they're finding is what the ISPs are who have the real access to understanding what the actual open rate is that it's being inflated by the ESPs. And it's being inflated because open tracking technology is fundamentally flawed. There's different technical reasons why an open, that we're seeing an open showing as an open when it wasn't actually open. I don't have time to get into all those reasons here. I don't want to bore the audience, Daryl, but so there's a bunch of reasons why open tracking technology is imperfect and at times maybe even unreliable. So, I mean, in theory, knowing if and how the email is opened is great, but in practice, you may not see opens from prospects who have actually opened. So there's false positives, there's false negatives, and it's all, for various reasons, like the recipient isn't connected to the internet, the pixel doesn't fire, some mobile phones and email clients download images by default, so 1x1 pixel is used, by tracking tools. So there's the false positives and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, open rate also is actually, Daniel, if you've got, image number 9, I think you might be able to fire that up and you can have a look at, some of the data provided by, this was what I was just quoting from, was it Verizon? This is, again, I can send you guys the link. I mean, it's dramatic, right? And this is often not talked about. I don't know why people don't talk about this, but these are fake open rates, right? It's really kind of an issue, and it's so what does this mean to you? It doesn't mean that all pixel generated activity is inaccurate. It means that we should be looking at the full picture of data, like trends in open rate. The trend in your open rate might be something worth actually looking at, absolutely, and placing more emphasis on the response that your messages are generating or not. So open rate important, yes. Lots of bad advice out there on it, and kind of, I don't know what the deal is with that, Daryl. I mean, there's a lot of people placing all this importance on open rate. In a marketing context, it's extremely important. In a sales context, it's important too, because you've got to know if you're getting delivered, it helps you understand. But with all these false positives in marketing and sales contexts, it's a technical nightmare. It's really difficult to extract any value out of it. And I see a lot of people coming to me. The only reason I think it deserves being on the list is people come to us all the time, and people are out there on LinkedIn all the time. I'm not getting my open rate. What's a good open rate? I'm like, who cares what a good open rate? What are you talking about? I just don't think there's any need for that. So how do you feel? How do you react to everything I just said, Daryl?
So it was a Verizon study, just so you know. So that's the first part.
Verizon.
The second part there is most marketers these days do not even give 2 hoots about open rates. Most marketers,
is that right?
What they really care about is they care about click-through rates, which is essentially the exact same thing you're saying. So Jeff Molinar was saying that when it comes to open rates, what really matters is not that they open it, but did they respond to it, right? Did they actually do something with
the
it?
action.
And was there an action? And that's what a click-through rate is. Did they, from a marketer's point of view, did they click on the call to action? That's the true way to know if it actually was effective. So in my point of view, especially in the world of sales, an open rate, because for many SDRs, open rates are a new thing. You never had them before, right? Because you weren't sending the emails out. But now with the world of sales engagement, you're sending out all the emails and you're feeling pretty excited. And look at me. I've had you folks, you SDRs, you've come to me and you've told me my subject lines suck. And if I need help with my, marketing emails, they're available as a resource to me, the marketer, because their open rates rock. And I chuckle when I see that, because it shows, to Jeff's point, that the individual SDR doesn't understand why open rates are intriguing, but mostly meaningless. Did they react? It's a vanity metric, like a like is on a social media post. It doesn't do anything other than make you feel good.
Even more than that, correct, I would agree with that. Even more than that, technically speaking, and this is what shocked me, I didn't know about this research, with the ESPs over, I mean, my own experience is I can see that in our email list when we do marketing, but technically speaking, just technically speaking, it's almost irrelevant. To look at it, it's because it's unreliable. It is fundamentally unreliable, and large organizations agree.
Now, Jeff's point, though, was valid. As much as it's unreliable, here's the beauty. It is somewhat consistently unreliable. So Jeff made the point of, when it comes to open rates, are your open rates trending in the right direction? Are the reactions, the responses, the conversions, what we marketers call click-through rates, are they trending in the right direction? That's when you know you're doing something right. Therefore, if you're going to test two different emails, an A and a B, to see which one works best, or two different cadences, you really want to look at the conversion ratios. You want to see the trend lines, not necessarily open rates, to see what actually matters. So, on the spirit of enough bad advice, stop caring about open rates. He's got to say one more thing. Look at him. He's got his finger up. Yeah. What is it, Jeff?
Sorry about the finger. I've given you the finger, Daryl. No, I just wanted to say that given the global economic climate at the moment, and that the trend, this is absolutely going to go in the direction of open rates becoming less and less important. Because SDRs are going to have more and more pressure put on them to get conversations started, lined up for their AEs, but quality conversations, not, these. So open rate, again, I think will become less important because of that. There's just more pressure because of the economic conditions that we're forced with. So anyway, yeah, we're good.
No, true story. All right. Yep. So this morning I did all my one-on-ones, my weekly one-on-ones on my Monday morning that I do with all my AEs. And I asked them, not what's their open rate? That question did not come up once. It's like, how many conversations did you have last week? How many are you going to have this week? How many of your deals are progressing? So that's what you got to open rates are a myth. It's crap. It's enough on that bad advice. So that's the scoop. Jeff Molander, enough bad advice. Open rates don't matter. It's what actually happens that matters most. Moving on, let's go to our next myth. The next myth, according to Jeff Molander, is all around calls to action. Jeff, what's the scoop on the enough bad advice as it relates to the old CTA?
Yeah, well, you've been told, make sure your outreach messages are clear and concise and compelling, and that you must be compelling enough to inspire them to take an action ultimately. And this is where your message convinces the customer, or and a clear call to action, drives them to hit reply. But actually, a call to action in most cases should not be used in an email. Again, it depends on how you might define a call to action, and certainly there are traditional ways of looking at it. So anytime I talk about this, I'm backpedaling a little here, Daryl, because when I talk about it with people on LinkedIn, they're like, well, what do you suggest in addition, Jeff, in place of, a call to action, like asking if they're interested in hearing more, right? What do you suggest, Jeff? And I'll give a suggestion, and they'll like, oh, well, that's a different form of a call to action. Yes, but it's not telling them what to do. So, so it's not about, what most prospects are responding to. That's just in our experience. I don't know about your team's experience, Daryl, but we're finding that the less that we use calls to action, the more that we try to pique customers' curiosity, and the call to action is implied, right? Almost like a cliffhanger in copywriting, right? Where you just, ask a really smart question and just, there's no, because we make those suggestions as well all the time. And customers are like, well, and our members are like, well, where's the call to action? And I said, do you see the implication is you're expecting a response? Yes. I said, that's enough for the call to action. So a call to action is really a marketing concept that salespeople, in my view, have been told to put into their sales outreach messages, because there's this marketing belief system, especially in SDRs, that has been instilled in them, I think, to their detriment. Not maybe I'm alone on this, Daryl. I don't think I am, but that there's this marketing mentality that I've got to tell the customer what to do, otherwise they're not going to book a meeting with me. I've got to ask them for the meeting. They realize very quickly that if you want to get more conversations about eventually booking a meeting, then removing your call to action is a really good idea, because it really generates a lot more response. And we don't really think, we know the reason it does that is because it doesn't look like everybody else who's jamming calls to action in their sales outreach messages.
So the call to action, this is probably the most provocative of all of your positions, Jeff, but I actually agree with you mostly that it's bad advice. So if you're a sales manager, or if you are a sales manager and you say, or you advise your colleagues, where's your call to action? Jeff's 100% right. That is a legit question if you're a marketer. But if you're in sales, then there's a couple things going on here. Either you've got an inbound lead, so marketing's already warmed it up, so you don't need to have a call to action. They've already done that for you. Or it's an outbound lead and you're probably doing some account-based, selling, which means you're trying to build a rapport and a relationship, and you're playing the long game. And when you're playing the long game, then you don't need to have that call to action. In fact, what we like to say over and over again is ditch the pitch. A call to action is a clear sales tactic that most buyers react viscerally to because they know they're being sold. But if you add value over the long haul, now this might take weeks, this might take days, this might take months, they will value you and the fact that you didn't pitch them, and they will consume your content, and they will come to you when they finally do have a question. Typically what happens is they react to whatever you share with them. You see this over and over again, whether it be social media experts, John Barrows, Morgan Ingrams, Dan Disney, the crew goes on. They all say the same thing. Your social media touches, your email outreaches should not be making that hard ask. You should simply educate and inform. Thought you might find this case study interesting. I know you're in the same industry as this individual was. From what I understand, you might have some of the same challenges. Check it out. If you want to know more about how they did this, I'm here. Otherwise, have a great day. And I would argue with you, Jeff, that you're actually right. What I just did there wasn't a call to action per se. I didn't say do something. I simply made myself available. If you want to know more about, this particular case study, I'm here. Otherwise, have a great day. People find that so just refreshing that they actually stop and listen to your content because they don't feel cornered. So I know that is a tough one when you give that feedback, Jeff. I'm curious, how viscerally do your clients fight you on this when you suggest this?
Well, really a good question. This gets to the fact that we probably attract more AEs to this methodology and this philosophy, way of going about it, way of thinking about it, than we do SDRs, simply because SDRs are under pressure to create meetings. And guys like me would come in and say, hey, look, if you're asking for the meeting too early, like an email number one, as an example, or you're forcing the meeting, you end up with these reluctant meetings, people who are reluctant, and then your no-show rate for the AE goes, 40%, 60%. So, I'm sorry, I lost track of your question, Daryl. I was going.
My question was simply how viscerally do some of them object to this guidance from you?
Yeah, I mean, if you're an SDR, you probably think I'm from the moon, but we have plenty of SDRs as our members who try it. So that's all I would ask you to do is give it a try and not ask for the meeting. So I'm bringing up meetings because, meeting is the most popular call to action that there is. Book my calendar. Are you interested in talking more? I want, and talking, usually the SDR is not looking for a conversation through email. They're usually looking for a conversation on the phone. So what we do is we say, slow it down and, provoke their curiosity such that the call to action is implied, which is, as you said, Daryl, refreshing, because you're not making the big ask and you're making a reasonable ask. How about we talk about this through email, a short email exchange, to see if a larger conversation makes sense. And we write that phrase, by the way, right into the messages, and we see it's nice and neutral. We see really good response with it, putting them in control of their own calendar, right? Not looking like we're begging, not looking like we need the meeting, which we do. But those are, there's a lot of psychology that feeds into this that we just don't have the time to get into today. But you don't want to look needy, and a call to action could look bossy, could look needy, makes you look like you need the meeting. Any kind of a follow-up campaign that looks like you're persisting. Is got to be very careful about how you make those follow-ups. And I don't want to go too far down that road, but. Yeah, it was a really, really good question. Some people resist it. The AEs tend not to resist it. Daryl, they're like, oh, that makes all the sense in the world.
All right. So there you have it. A recap on the call to action. Enough bad advice. You do not always need to have a call to action. In fact, quite often, the majority of the time, not having a call to action will drive better results for you than having a call to action. But hey, don't believe us. Try it for yourselves. Test it, and then you'll know which way to go, rather than assuming that the call to action is the best piece of advice you can do to apply to your own sales tactic.
Don't assume.
So there you go.
Yep.
All right. Let's move it on. Next, enough bad advice is all about personalization. Son, young lady, I want to be inclusive, everybody. Yo, hey, you need to personalize every single outreach, because that's the only way you're going to connect with them. Personalization, that's where it's at. Jeff, is that good advice or is that bad advice?
I would like to say that we live in a spam economy these days. It's out of control and it's only getting worse. We're all getting very good at spotting messages and marketing and marking messages as spam. Even AEs, as Beck Holland likes to say, her big aha, that she's marking these as spam. She's like, I would never respond to these, and here I am sending this kind of stuff out. So that was a game changer for her. So in 5 more years, Daryl, I know you've heard me say this, Gartner predicts that marketers will have totally abandoned personalization as we know it. So we're talking about stuff you get in the mail, dear Mr. Molander, dear Mr. Prale, dear Daryl, that kind of stuff, and as well online. So that to me, and I read this only a few months ago, and I was like, holy crap, that's huge. Automation is making it very easy to spot and spam bin our messages, because most senders are confusing customers' context, customizing the email to their context with fake automated machine-driven personalization. Mail merge. Everybody knows what mail merge is. What was it, 1970s technology, right, Daryl? So everybody knows what mail merge is, and everybody knows that, when I receive a message, it says, hi, Jeff, or hi, Mr. Molander, or whatever, this is, and then it has my company name is in there and everything. We're forgetting to, what makes a message stand out and be seen as personal these days. Contextual relevancy, business context. So for example, making an observation or making an insight about the prospect's business environment in that message, that is personalized, contextually personalized. So there's a difference, I guess, between context, which takes some time and takes some skill as a seller to research the context, to understand the context, to be able to articulate the context. In an SDR environment, and again, we're seeing a lot of SDRs. Taft Love is a great guy who you can research. He publishes so much about how SDRs are advancing these days. In terms of getting, actually, SDRs have support teams that work for them to gather up this research and this intelligence. So I'll leave it at that, Daryl. I'll stop there.
I want to make sure I have this right. So you're saying to me that mail merge doesn't work? I just want to be clear on that. saying "Dear Jeff," and then
Is that a trick question?
Yeah, having boilerplate
Well,
templates is not optimal. Dear Jeff, blah 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 blah.
yeah. Well, that's a softball. Okay. So I thought you were challenging me there for a minute. Yeah, right. I mean, I'm not the one saying this. I mean, everybody knows this to be true. Gartner's got a report out on it saying, marketers are going to abandon this type of stuff because people have become so jaded. So I think sales should take the lead and really pay attention. So here's an example from a guy I've been coaching, Steve, noticing your new patient engagement tool, MyChart. MyChart was an app that his target just released. He took the time to check that out. Doesn't take a lot of time in some cases. Could take 5 minutes. Could take some of our AEs research for 5 hours before making a reach out. Okay. So continuing, it's in early release, which is also another layer of knowledge there. Boom. So we have 2 observations. These are observations, by the way, not insights. It's very easy for SDRs to make these kind of observations because they don't take much time to observe and get it in the email. Now, there's a great facilitative question here at the end of this. We don't have time. We can get into that some other time. But I mentioned earlier, these questions that help a customer reflect, and a question that would serve as a call to action. That's exactly what Alex was doing here. We had a lot of success with this particular one. So observations are really tricky because, Daryl, they can be mail merged in, and they are. And we have members who do it successfully. But it's becoming very difficult to use a observation which is easy to research, stick into an email, and look like you've taken some time to put some skin in the game and get to know the prospects, understand their context, their environment, their business environment, or something about them. The challenge is that these aren't working like they used to.
So then what's the answer? Should I personalize? Yes, no. Should I make observations? Yes, no. Do I just go boilerplate?
Definitely don't go boilerplate. At minimum, you need to, in an SDR role, which I know is your main audience. Yes, so you have to be doing some observations. AEs, on the other hand, should be doing insights. But the distinction there, Sean Cease likes to talk about this at Connect and Sell. The distinction there, the best way to think about it is, if it takes a lot of work, then it's an insight, right? If you have to put the pieces of the puzzle together, you go over here, you read the annual report, letter to shareholders, and you go over here, you read 3 trade articles, and you're like, oh my gosh, these guys are in a position where they've got this issue internally. Or maybe you make a call to a non-sales call to a direct report of the person who you're calling on. You get a little intel, 5 minutes, they give you some intel. You're like, okay, you put the pieces of the puzzle, the contextual business issue, and then you put that into your email, and that's an email that's in the top 1% of all the inbounds going in, because you've taken the time to put that contextual relevancy together. That actually took some time and some insight. So that's the difference between the observation and the insight. So SDRs minimum should be doing the observations whenever possible. And we're seeing the insights actually move into the realm of SDRs. I don't know if you guys are doing that, Daryl, but we do. It depends on what you're selling. I don't think it's appropriate for what you guys are selling, Daryl, but we do have some SDR teams that are super boned up on what they're selling and are able to have these really mature conversations in email, but also on the phone with their AEs, because when they hand off to the AEs, they really are focused in on industry context and business challenge context. So they're handing off the best possible leads.
All right. So there you have it, folks. When it comes to the myth of you need to personalize, not the myth, the advice. Sorry. You need to personalize. All your outreach should be personalized. That is a myth. That's passé. The stats support it. What you instead need to do is recognize the sales role. SDRs, you need to make some observations. Account executives, you need to make some insights. There's a degree of time, exactly as Jeff talked about, but simply personalizing it, that's bad advice. Enough bad advice. Either observe or give insights. That's what you need to be doing. That wraps up that conversation. Let's go to our next myth. The myth is all about educating prospects. Jeff, when it comes to educating prospects, what are we seeing that we say enough? Enough with this bad advice.
This is where we may come into conflict.
Just this one spot, just so I'm clear, because, we never come into conflict.
Well, so far we haven't.
All right.
But we were talking about
being
calls
polite.
to action.
I'm going to social media afterwards. I'm going to say, Molinder's whack. Don't watch this webinar.
It's not about my opinion. It's not about, in all good humor. No, it's not about my opinion. It's about the experience of I stand on the experience of our customers, and as well, again, good reasoning. So I think I've got some pretty good reasoning, but again, it's based on the experience of our customers. So you have value to contribute to customers, right? We all do. But convincing them that you are the best choice to engage in is a tough discussion. I know that because it's the same for me. And it's increasingly difficult these days. So it's only natural to provide customers with these kind of ethical bribes, with a free taste of value that you can provide without their having to invest in you. You give away a little value up front and without commitment. You educate as a means to engage them in discussion, as a way to show them that you know what you're talking about. You educate to demonstrate and to motivate, to demonstrate value and to motivate their behavior. What kind of behavior? Behavior which in the end results in an appointment or a sale. And just like with storytelling, we demonstrate value. We educate potential customers based on their problem, but we also educate on our unique solution. Ultimately, we educate because we want customers to consider investing. The trouble is that we're educating with trust building in mind, and this actually risks creating distrust because prospects often view our educating them as a ploy to reach our goal of selling to them, getting the appointment, not their goal. So they see your education as a sales trick rather than helpful advice. These people exist. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see that there are end buyers who pop up every once in a while who are in full militant agreement that this is how they see the world. And I think that most of us see the world this way, that when someone starts, saying, here's an article for you. I was thinking of you. I saw this and this and that. And these are the things that tend to also help us blend in. So when it comes to education, it's almost like, I'm here to educate you. And they see education as a ploy to earn a meeting or a demo. Now, these are, I guarantee, savvy buyers, people who have been around for a while, but those are the people who you're calling on most likely are people who have been around for a while, and they get a lot of people calling on them. So, assuming that we can agree that what I'm describing is a challenge to overcome, and I don't think that we can all agree on that. My other concern is, when do you start educating clients? Because when you start educating often determines how much behavior you're going to motivate. Your education may be falling on deaf ears because of your timing. Let's say you start teaching prospects making deposits first before you withdraw, as they say. Let's say you start doing that right away as part of your cold follow-up email sequence. Or your LinkedIn outreach, as Daryl was saying, right? You're also on LinkedIn. This is probably hurting more than it's helping in our experience. So let's examine how to best start conversations in situations where your client needs to know, your clients need to know what it is that they don't know before they can buy. Maybe they need to be educated on the status quo situation, right? In order to understand just how bad their status quo situation is, even though it's fairly comfortable. Maybe your customer needs to learn how bad change is needed, right? Or they need to be educated on a concept which is new and vital to their success. So, we educate as a means to earn customers' consideration and to invest in them in themselves at our company. We do it all the time. So, Daryl, I'm doing this too. I'm educating people as a way to get to know them, but it's very tricky. So I'll stop there for a moment and let you react to everything I just said there.
So let's do the kind of the abbreviated version of this.
We're getting into where marketing and sales kind of start blending together, right? So SDRs are on the front line of this. So I guess I would say, do you see the distinction between marketing automation and sales engagement software, right? This is your business. This is what you guys do.
I had no idea. Yeah, it might be. I'm just being smart ass. Yes, marketing automation, I tend to
Yeah,
say
you got me there for a minute. I'm like, holy
I think
crap.
maybe it's something else. No, I work for Gong. What are you talking about? Yeah, for those who don't know, marketing automation tends to be a one-to-many, right? Where I'm doing a blast to a list,
Right.
typically. Hey, you should come and join us on this webinar. And even if you fill out a form and I do a marketing nurture, it's still a very generic nurture. It's not personalized at all. All right. There's little, we might be giving some content as a call to action just to see what do they bite on. And yeah, we can map it against their persona and we're just playing the odds. But it's often coming from a nameless individual in the company or some figurehead who we know we'll never talk to. Whereas sales engagement is all about a one-on-one relationship. It's me talking to you. All right. Here's my name. Here's my number. Here's my mobile. Here's my office line. Here I am on LinkedIn. Here I am on Twitter. Here I am on Facebook. Hey, how do you want to talk to me? You want to do WhatsApp? I can do WhatsApp. I'm here for you. It's about my reputation, not about my company's reputation, right? So marketing automation, it's more about VanillaSoft, but on sales engagement, it's more about Daryl Prale talking to you. So, and then it's about multi-channel. And the last thing about, sales engagement, it's actually, the theory is that you've already expressed some kind of interest. So this conversation is somewhat pre-qualified. Of course, the SDR's job is to truly make it SQL, sales qualified, from an MQL, marketing qualified lead they got. But yeah, there's a dramatic difference, one-to-many versus one-to-one. Entity, corporate branding, individual branding. We're best guess at what you might like. This is very personal because I've taken time to research you and your firm, and I understand all the case studies that relate to you, and I can be very specific. So broad, specific, another good example on the differences. And it's also the tools they use, right? So the sales engagement can be integrated with your CRM and everything else so that the rep can just go nuts, where marketing automation tends to stand alone. So big difference. Yes, but let me ask you this, Jeff. As it comes to educating prospects, so let's just play quick and dirty. Should we not educate or should we educate? Yes, no.
Yeah, yes, yes, but you have to be invited. Everything you just said, I'm very disappointed, by the way, that you just said for the last couple of minutes, that we can't disagree. I'm very disappointed. I agree with you militantly, violently. But I'm sorry, I lost track of your question.
I'm laughing because Jeff and I never agree. All right. We have more emails apologizing to one another than we do actually agreeing. So everything you said, I agree with me. So this is on public record. Jeff Molander agrees with me. It's out there.
But we need the issue here is as you hit the nail on the head. It is, do you have permission to start educating them? That's 95% of the issue. And what we're seeing is SDRs are making that assumption. And because they're being told, don't get me wrong, it's not like SDRs are like, oh yeah, I'm just going to send out the sequence of emails and I'm just going to keep bug the shit out of them and send them articles and tell them and educate them and invite them to my webinar. If they're on your list, Daryl, in marketing, if you're on your marketing team's list, that's one thing. They've opted into that. They're expecting that. But if they're with an SDR, the follow-up, including all this education, doesn't necessarily make sense in a truly cold context where they haven't made that, they haven't requested it.
I'm going to say, how do I connect with them if I'm not educating them? Because you're saying I am educating them, but we're also talking about enough bad advice. So what is it I'm doing wrong? What should I instead be doing?
The challenge is, and I don't have any easy answers, is that we need to figure out a way to help them want to ask for the help. So the easy answer that I provide, that we try to wrap our success principle into one easy to remember success principle, which is get them curious. And it works in every context. On the follow-up, on a cold email, it's like the more that you can, if you can think about it this way, your drip, I don't like this word, drip and blast, these are marketing words, shouldn't be used in sales context, but you should be constantly sending emails that make them a little bit more curious. The response that you're looking for should be, I'm not exactly sure what you're getting at, Daryl. I would need a little bit more information, but this sounds good, right? Like I showed this example before that ended with a question, right? That kind of it's called a facilitative question. It's very provocative. And if you send that as part of even your follow-up sequence, these are like the guys, oh, this is a question I should be asking myself, but I'm not. So the response is from their mobile, usually, I don't know what you're getting at, but that is a really good question. And I don't have an answer for it. What are you suggesting? That's an opportunity. So that's what to do. Help them want to ask. Now you know what to do, right? You know, say, well, we got a webinar, we've got a white paper, right? That's what.
So then
Drop
let
the
me ask you a
microphone.
question. Yeah, so let me ask you a question then on that. On that, you said make them curious. I love that. Make them curious. So if it's so we'll use VanillaSoft just because it's nice and simple. It's a sales engagement platform. And for context, for those of you who don't know, think of us exactly as you might Outreach or SalesLoft. Okay, so now you've got context.
Only better. I said
better. Yeah, you did, and that's on public record too.
Better looking.
But if I were to say to them, just thought you know, so here's my email to them. Hey, not sure you've seen it. Bridge Group and Trish Bertuzzi, name drop, came out with a report recently that said SDRs need to average 9.2 attempts to successfully connect with a prospect. I'm just curious, are you doing that? And if you're not, what does that mean to your bottom line? If I just said that,
I would phrase it differently. That's a yes or no question.
okay, that's
So
cool. That's what we're asking. So
Yeah,
coach me.
I'm going to coach you. Yeah. You don't want to ask a yes or no question because that gives you a 50-50 chance of getting shot down. Also, yes or no questions are typically, especially in a sales context, offered up with a specific answer in mind that you are looking for.
Yes.
Right. That's why that came to mind. See, you're interesting, Daryl, because you know sales and you know marketing, and that's why I like talking to you. That's what I would call a marketing hook or a marketing a question that comes from information gathering, which is also sales, BANT, right? This is all old-fashioned stuff.
But remember,
doesn't work anymore.
1/3 of SDR teams today are in the marketing department, not in the sales department. So carry on, coach me on that scenario.
You got it. Yeah. So what we need to do, your question was, Trish said, this is the scenario within, you've got to send this many emails to get a touch. And your question was?
My question was, I'm just curious, are you achieving that? And if not, how is this impacting your results?
Yeah, I would suggest something like, I have reason to believe that you're not engaging in this tactic. If that is correct, what is preventing you from engaging in that? So that would reflect back on
open-ended.
them.
Yep.
Right.
Yes,
yeah.
no.
Directing them back to their business environment. Right. And also you're saying, hey, I've done some research on you. I even if you haven't as an SDR, it's a fair way of saying, I have a reason to believe this is actually a great takeaway for your audience, dude. So I have reason to believe, right? Even if you don't have reason to believe, you can get away with it, right? But you're gonna have to, if they respond, you're gonna have to, do the dance, right? Well, why do you have reason to believe? So you've got to be able to be comfortable to make that kind of a provocation, but it works. So I have reason to believe that you're not using this tactic, or you might be overlooking this tactic, right? So it's a very neutral way to not challenge the status quo, but to open it up for a discussion. If I'm right, giving them permission to say, nope, you're completely half-baked on this dude, and you're going to get those kind of responses, or dudette. If I'm correct, what did I say? What's preventing you, right? And isn't that what we want to know? What's preventing them from engaging in that? Well, we don't believe in it. We don't think that that's necessary. You're going to get those kind of responses too.
Sure.
But those are actual. And if you get smarmy ass responses from really powerful people, oftentimes that doesn't mean they're shooting you down. That means that they're giving you a smarmy ass answer because the status quo is very comfortable and that's what they believe in, and that they're not moving. So it's up to you to kind of, would you like to have a discussion? What if I could tell you a short story? This is where your story comes in, Daryl. I know you guys have got great stories. SDR should have that arsenal of stories. I can tell you a really short story and about this much on your mobile device, right? It's going to be really short about the ROI achieved by by not talking about the solution that you provide, but by talking about the how, that the different way that they're going about it that generated that result. Leave the fact that they're if you're going to tell a story, leave the fact that it's your client out of the story. Just say, this company did this in this amount of time. What's preventing you from doing the same?
And it's funny because I do the exact same thing. You know, we're rolling out Salesforce.com right now. And I literally had that conversation saying, yes, folks, we're having some bumps in the road. But here's the good news. Every other person who's rolled it out has had bumps in the road too. So if they figured it out, we can figure it out. You know, can we do this internally, or do we need an external advisor? But that was the very, very conversation we had. You know, so I love that example. We're out of time. We're out of time. And I'm sad. But if we can bring up the next slide, what I want to share here is that you can continue the conversation with Jeff. Go to communications-edge.com and check out his website, or just email him, especially if you're watching this on demand right now. In other words, not live. All right, you can't submit us a question. You know, we've been busy the whole time here on the text chat, but you can do this. Just email him or email me. I'm indifferent. Or better yet, get rid of that. Just follow Jeff and I on LinkedIn, because we hang out there all the time. We have no lives. We just are desperate for any love and affection you can give us. And we'd be grateful if you could just be our friends. Make us curious, but don't personalize it too much. Don't educate us, but make us want to know more. Do not give us a call to action, but make us want to, engage you and start a dialogue with you. Don't care about open rates. I may or may not open the email you give us, but trust me, I'm reading it. And you know what? You don't need a compelling subject line. All you need is a handful of words. Make it vague, but make it provocative. But make it great, but make it work. But don't overthink it. How's that for a thought process? All of this together is all about enough bad advice. And that, my friend, is Jeff Molander, and he is a rock star. He is what I like to call a critical thinker. That's what I love about Jeff. And exactly as he said, there's too many people online today who are just giving you trite, cliche advice. My friends.
And that doesn't mean make them bad people.
No.
They're just trying to produce content.
They all wish they were Jeff Molander. That's what that makes them. But in the meantime, they might, I wish I was you. Come on, look at you. You're a stud muffin. Folks, we're out of time. Thank you so much for being here. Jeff, thank you. You're a rock star. Everybody, if you like this, there's more great content at vanillasoft.com. In the meantime, follow us, Jeff, me, on social media. My name is Daryl Perel. That's Jeff Molander. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye. We're clear.